All right, welcome back to the channel, y'all. If you've never been here before, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let's get right into the topic without delay. So, jury number 6, or juror number 6 from Diddy's trial has now officially been dismissed by the judge. My angles are wild, okay? And my reasoning is unorthodox. But it's called reasoning with intelligence for a reason, and I want you to pay attention because I'm going to open your eyes up to something. So, a week ago, when we found out last week that the juror number 6 in question, they were thinking about removing that juror from the jury pool. Prosecution had asked the judge or requested that the judge remove that juror. I left a comment on Lisa Evers' platform. And the comment said, Judge Subramanian is definitely going to dismiss that juror. 5 weeks into the trial, a lot of testimony has been given. That juror is leaning towards being a disruption, possible, maybe a mistrial. Because all it takes is one juror to stick out, to say, nope, I believe that he is innocent, or off the charges, and go the opposite direction of where they're trying to take this case. And that's it. And the reason why I said that I believe that Judge Subramanian was going to release that juror, let that juror go. That juror was a black male, 41 years old, from the Bronx, New York, listens to hip-hop music, is an avid fan of hip-hop music. That was enough for them to say his attitude towards us tells us that he is leaning towards Diddy's favor. We have to find a way to get rid of that juror right there. Y'all got to understand that they're looking for a conviction. They're looking for a flush conviction. But I also left on Lisa Evers' platform because somebody asked me why. And I said, Judge Subramanian comes from a community where it is widely known, and I'm not saying all of them are, but it is widely known that in that community, South Asian community that he is from, racism against blacks, particularly African-American blacks, or any person of African descent, it is a well-known thing. Now, I'm going to get into the information about the juror and why the juror was dismissed. But first, I got to give you some information about this judge. The last time when Diddy's attorneys asked for a dismissal, that was a valid reason to dismiss a case. What the prosecution did by putting that young lady on the stand for that young lady to tell a lie in front of the jury by saying that Diddy hung her over the balcony. And then when they asked, what date was it? What time was it? What location was it? And what she said, Diddy's attorneys did some quick digging up and came up with, listen, Diddy was not even on the West Coast. He was on the East Coast. Matter of fact, he was at a special event. That event, there are cameras around, so they presented pictures. They presented a hotel receipt booked by him, his team. They presented enough to say Diddy was not there, so he could not have possibly been in LA hanging you over a balcony on that day that you said that happened. The prosecution knew this, But they still put that girl on the stand so she could lie in front of the jurors. And then when she was done, they asked for her testimony to be struck from the record. You can strike it from the record, but you can't strike it from the jurors' minds. So an incriminating testimony like that turned out to be fake is already still sitting in the minds of these jurors. Now let's talk about Judge Subramanian. Judge Subramanian is from a South Asian community. Judge Subramanian is the position that he has been appointed. By the way, he was appointed by Biden, and the position he has been appointed, he is the first of his kind to ever be appointed to that position. All black people should know what this means. Anytime you see something that says this is the first black woman to ever XYZ, this is the first black man to ever XYZ, it brings a certain level of pride. However, that individual knows that they are indebted to the people who put them there. So I went and looked up who he served under, who he worked for in his time coming up the ranks. There's one particular judge, the Honorable Judge Dennis Jacobs, who I went and did some research on and found out he was a super conservative. And coming up under a super conservative, you being an employee of his and working closely with him, you only mesh well with his ideology and you stay employed because you mesh well with his ideology. So that was enough for me. Now, I'm going to give you a perspective into the South Asian community, right? And again, I'm not saying every one of them are, because there are those who are trying to break the stereotypes, kind of like how you have white people and you have like a lot of older white people who came up back in the day type. They already are set in their ways and they have their prejudices and their preconceived notions. But then you have their grandchildren, a newer generation who's saying, I'm not down with my grandparents' ideology. If I love a black girl or a black man, I'll marry that person. And it's going to cause some disruption in my family. Hell, they might even disown me. But their ideology that black people are lazy and they're not good and they're not clean and all this other stuff, I know now as a grown person that these things that my grandparents said or my parents said are lies, right? So you do have a population of South Asians who are very much trying to go against the grain. And I'll get you into that in a minute. So it's important to understand, right, that the term South Asian actually encompasses diverse communities, and their views on black people are not monolithic, meaning not every one of them harbors the same view. However, research and social commentary points to a complex picture with both positive and negative aspects. I'm going to get you into some of the negative aspects of this community that he comes from. You can't really shy away much from how you were raised and who raised you unless you do absolute work. So him ruling against Diddy and Diddy's defense all the time, I expected this and I predicted it before he even started doing it. And I want you to keep this in mind. I did a research on who he was, his background, and how he got to where he is at. And like I said, please keep this in mind. I made this prediction on public platforms, to include Lisa Evers' platform, before he started doing what he's doing. Now, there are a couple of things, according to research, that exist in their community. And the first one is anti-blackness and colorism. Anti-Black racism exists within some South Asian communities, often rooted in their historical factors like colorism and the caste system that governs their society. That has associated with lighter skin versus darker skin, and lighter skin is associated with higher social status and privilege, while darker skin is associated with the poor, the less educated, etc. Then you should take into context the model minority myth. Let me take you into this. So some Asian communities or some Asians, they have internalized this harmful model minority stereotype, which can foster prejudice against Black Americans by portraying Black Americans as less successful because they are not hardworking people. In other words, lazy people. They're lazy. This myth oftentimes leads to a sense of superiority, and it contributes to an anti-Black attitude within their South Asian communities. So you will see them come to the US, and they'll excel in academics, and then they'll go on to be doctors and pediatricians, well, doctors, pediatricians, but doctors and lawyers and whatever else there is that stands out on a social level. And they go on to make these great accomplishments and achievements, and then they talk bad about African Americans or Black Americans, as in, oh, the only reason they didn't make it is because they're lazy as hell, and we made it because we work harder than they do. Now, truth be told, that's not necessarily true. You have to look at the history of both parties, right? But they sell themselves that the model minority myth, and that is deeply engraved in their communities. Another thing is silence and complicity. And I want you to think about this very well. So silence and complicity would be historically. Notice I'm not going off emotions or I'm not going off stuff that I'm making up. I'm actually reading to you from researched information pertaining to the community that Judge Subramanian, this judge who is overseeing Diddy's case, comes from. Extensive research has been done on his community concerning racism, particularly towards people of African descent, particularly Black Americans. Now, there's the silence and complicity. Historically, Asians or South Asians and their communities have remained silent in the face of racial injustice against Black people, or they have even engaged in prejudicial actions against Blacks themselves. That's not me saying that. This has historically been proven and recorded. There's a thing in the UK, the United Kingdom, that's called Afrophobia. Like a piece of the word African, then a piece of, then phobia, Afrophobia. In the UK, Afrophobia, prejudice against people of African descent, is known to exist within some Asian communities, within South Asian communities rather, potentially stemming from colonial system. And then you have internalized racism, colorism within the South Asian community, where it is a general consensus that lighter skin is favored over darker skin. And this can directly contribute to their anti-Blackness as well. Now, I must say that there are groups out here who do support movements like Black Lives Matter and who are making a difference by teaching diversity and by also teaching their community, their South Asian communities, that if it wasn't for African Americans, they themselves probably would not be in the United States of America or be treated with any level of respect in the United States of America. So, and that their present and their futures are intertwined. This is the new teaching from the newer generation, right? However, I had to bring you what is generally known through research about the community that this judge comes from. With that said, though, let's talk about a couple of things. So we want to know, what about this juror that was dismissed? And what about the person who replaced them? I'm going to tell you straight up that they removed a black man from the jury. They replaced him with a white man on that jury. Let's get into the details, though. According to news media outlet right here, released this morning, just an hour and 40 minutes ago, juror number 6, who Judge Arun Subramanian dismissed moments ago, he is a 41-year-old black man who lives with his fiancée and their child. This is according to the defense team. He previously told the courts that he works as a clerk at a correctional facility and said that he is a fan of 90s hip hop. He's 41 years old. Most likely, he's a fan of 90s hip hop, right? The juror said that he pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor fraud-related charge that was related to insurance in his past. And he received a 1-year conditional discharge. He told the courts that he had heard about the Sean Diddy Combs trial, but he said that he didn't really know much about it. He didn't know much about the details of it. He heard about it, because everybody's talking about it and it's all over the media, but that's about it. The alternate juror who replaces him is a 57-year-old white male who lives with his wife and 2 kids in Westchester County. He is a manufacturing architect with a master's degree in mechanical engineering. He said that he has heard some media coverage of the allegations against Diddy on the radio, but that's about it. Not really, he never really indulged in a conversation about it, and he really knows nothing much other than what he has heard on the radio in passing. He's 57, lives with his wife and kids, off in the suburbs of Westchester County. So I did some research on Westchester County and found out that more than half of Westchester County is white. It is a 51.2% of the population in Westchester County is Caucasian. African Americans or black people, non-Hispanic, makes up 13% of the population. The next highest demographic in that area is Hispanic or Latino, and they're 26.3% of the population. So between Hispanic or Latino and the Caucasian, they make up almost 70% of Westchester County. Blacks are just a small smidget of who comes from that county. And then Asian is at 6.1%. That makes up that county where this alternate juror that now sits on the jury resides. So the judge in the Sean Diddy Combs trial has dismissed juror number 6 over the juror's inconsistent disclosures about where he lives and with whom he lives. Juror number 6 will be replaced by the first alternate juror. You know, when they pick jurors, they have jurors that are picked, and then they have backup jurors just in case somebody gets ill, in case somebody decides they don't want to do this anymore, in case whatever the case may be. So during juror selection, the juror said that he lives with his fiance and baby daughter in the Bronx. But in an inquiry last week, he told the courts that he recently moved in with the woman and his child, who's been living in New Jersey. But he also stays with his aunt in the Bronx about 4 nights out of the week while he's working. So if you can see how that goes, him and his woman used to live in the Bronx together with their child. She moved, or they moved, out to Jersey. After they moved out to Jersey, his job is still in the Bronx, so he just stays locally with his aunt for 4 days out of the week while he's working in the Bronx, because that's where his job always been. And then when he's done, he goes back home to Jersey, and he recently moved in with his woman and his child. The same woman and child he told them he lived with in the Bronx. I'm guessing somewhere between then and now, they moved to Jersey. Well, the judge thinks that's a bit too confusing and seems like he might be hiding something. So Judge Arun Subramanian said on Monday morning that further questioning would be inappropriate and offered the juror another chance to what they call shade his answers to stay on the jury. I guess he wasn't able to explain it like I just did to you. Subramanian, the judge, last week said he believed that the juror appeared while answering questions during last week's inquiry, that the juror appeared to make an effort to stay on the jury. Juror number 6 is, like I said before, a 41-year-old black man, and according to the defense, which had argued at length to keep him, or at the very last question, to question him further. Defense attorney Xavier Donaldson said dismissing the juror would result in the diversity of this jury being shortened, meaning Diddy is no longer before his peers. He is now in the company of a whole bunch of non-black people, and I don't even know if they have any more black people left on this jury. Probably one more. Judge Subramanian now today, said it would be improper to let the race of the juror and the alternate juror factor into the proper course here all. That's crazy. Because your constitutional right is that you be judged by a jury of your peers. A white male, 57, pushing 60, who grew up off in the suburbs, in these nice, quiet neighborhoods, from a family of mom and dad, and went off to college and got a engineering master's degree, and then got a nice career going, got married early, is raising children, etc., back off in the suburbs. His whole life has been suburban. He is not Diddy's peer, a black man raised in the inner city, concrete jungles of New York, Harlem, crack era, epidemic era. And they have, Diddy is 54, somewhere around there, 52 to 54, something like that. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comment section. And this man is 57. So the age difference is not that far. However, the background is definitely far and could pose a problem, could cause a difference, you know. And anybody who says it won't or it shouldn't, then they are super delusional. So again, the judge said it would be improper to let the race of the juror and the alternate juror factor into the proper course here all. That's crazy. Diddy's attorneys basically said, if y'all remove this guy 5 weeks in, we're on our 6th week, and this trial is supposed to be 8 weeks long. And y'all already said we're going to end early. So I'm guessing the earliest is 7 weeks. So we got 1 more week left at this trial. And that's when you guys get ready to remove this person and put a juror in. And that juror that you're putting in is of a complete different race and complete different background, not similar to the person who is on trial. That's dangerous. And the judge said, let's not let race be a factor here. I told you all about Judge Subramanian. Subramanian said on Monday that he took the weekend to consider the issue, acknowledging its importance, but he said that such scrutiny is not required. Such scrutiny, making sure that if a black person is being tried, that you have a sufficient amount of black people on that jury. It's important, but such scrutiny is not required. Well, that's a flaw in the law. And I've seen it happen many times over, not just with Diddy. I've been saying this for quite some time now on this platform. I've watched quite a few cases get tried. And when you look at the demographics, when you look at the jury pool, the first thing you can't help but notice that there's a black man or a black woman on trial, and out of a jury pool of 12 jurors, you will see 1 or 2 black people who represent the person who is being tried. There's a reason why the Constitution said you should be tried by a jury of your peers, because having similar backgrounds, they might have a different or similar outlook to how your decisions were made, what you did, how things are seen in your community, wrong versus right, etc., etc. They might be a bit more understanding of how your upbringing played a part in whatever it is that you're tried for. Whereas a jury not of your peers, all their biases and preconceived notions about your kind might play into their decision to find you guilty, and you might not even be guilty. It might just be the way they see things based on how they have always felt about your kind. So this is why your constitutional right is to be tried by a jury of your peers. But in the United States of America, I see that violated over and over and over and over again. Now that I've seen how many times this judge has dismissed a request for a dismissal on valid grounds too, it tells me that this South Asian judge is super thankful for the position that he is in. He is seeking to add a notch to his belt. He wants to be the judge that sentences this mogul, one of the most popular people on the face of the earth, wealthy black man, he wants to be the judge to sentence him to prison. So he can say, I didn't fail that case. I got him and I sentenced him. And I can't help but to think that's his way of saying thank you to all the Caucasian folks that voted for him to put him in a position or selected him to put him in that position. It is kind of like his nod to them saying thank you. I appreciate it, and I'm out here knocking down big ones. Who better than a black man? Take into consideration what I said before about what history and research has shown about the community from which Judge Subramanian comes from. And also take into consideration, I made this prediction before, way before he made these decisions. And I did so because I went and researched what his community's views are on Black Americans or people of African descent. I'm going to leave this one right here. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Tell me if you think, now that the jury pool is severely unbalanced, if you ask me, what do you think the outcome of this case is? I will close this video by saying this. I've been watching going on 6 weeks now. I've paid intense attention to everything that's been said in that courtroom. And although I do find that Diddy is guilty of abuse in some way, which, looking at the tape with Cassie, that's the only abuse. Everything else that's been said about Diddy has been rebutted and disputed and refuted. In other words, they have not presented any proof to back all these accusations. And for the simple fact that they have not presented all these and any proof, I still have not seen sex trafficking, racketeering. Has not been proven yet. I'll leave this one right here. You leave your comments in the comment section below. I love when your comments are long with an explanation so we can have a discussion about why you think. The typical answer, lock him up, throw away the key. Okay, why? I just don't like his ass. Okay, we don't just lock people up and throw away the key because you don't like their ass, right? So I'm asking my audience to leave in the comment section something comprehensible, something intelligent as to why you're saying yes or no. Do you think Diddy is going to beat this case? Or do you think that regardless of whatever goes down in the courtroom, they've already made up their minds that he's going to prison? I'll catch you on the next video. It's SouFLoTV. I'm out. Hit that subscribe button. Peace.